Sometimes healing looks less like a finish line and more like a lantern you carry through the dark. For today's episode on the Inner Peace Better Health listeners, we are honoring the courage it takes to walk with that light. I'm your host Sana, and our guest, Adrienne Caldwell, author of Life Outside the Lines, has lived through what many only whisper about. And she chose to write it so others would feel seen, supported, and never ever alone in their own becoming. A fierce advocate for trauma awareness and resilience, Adrienne now calls Houston home, where she lives with her husband and cheers on her spirited 20-year-old daughter in college. So, to all my listeners, this conversation isn't about tidy answers or fluff. It is about honest ground, grief, grit, and the muscle memory of hope. So, if your story has ever felt too much, this space is for you. And I would like to give a note for everyone. Today's episode may reference traumatic experience. So, please take care of yourself, pause, breathe, or step away as needed. So, with that, Adrienne, welcome to the show, and it is really an honor to have you here with us.
Hi, Sana. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here, both with your guests and with you. So, as you said, I am Adrienne Caldwell. I am the author of Unbroken Life Outside the Lines. And it's the story of my life from early childhood to around early 20s. And during this time, I was either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of a child, emotional and physical abuse, extreme poverty, mental illness, homelessness, horrifically abusive foster care, bulimia, drug and alcohol addiction, pedophilia, death, and incest. So, as you mentioned, for our listeners, yes, any one of these topics may come up, and please do take care of yourself and step away if needed, because I am very open and very candid. So, Son, I'm turning it back over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adrian. Um, I think like this way, if I can start, with this kind of thought that comes in my mind. Now, mental health. Like if we talk about mental health, let's talk about holistic health. Um, Talking about mental health, about traumatic experiences. To whichever extent or limit it can be horrific, it's kind of considered a taboo, or people don't want to talk about it because they would feel really uncomfortable. Do you think that just suppressing those conversations or memories for someone who has gone through it, or with someone who knows anyone who has gone through it, that will help, or that will kind of work against the very essence of having these safe spaces?
So, in the short term, repressing emotions and really suppressing the conversations, it is a short-term solution, but a long-term problem.
Mhm.
If you're not addressing, the issues that you have, it is going to come back to you, and most likely not in the healthiest of ways. So, my family is a key example of suppressing it and not having conversations. In my family, they genuinely do not believe in mental illness. They
Mhm.
completely discard it and it runs in our family. My grandfather was schizophrenic. My mother became schizophrenic. I have a cousin who is schizophrenic. So, despite the fact that we have documented evidence that doctors have designated have these diagnoses, my family still refuses to accept it. And I don't know if they think that they're being strong by refusing to acknowledge it, but I can tell you it did me no favors growing up in an environment where it was not discussed, where it was taboo. Exactly what you mentioned, it taboo topic. So, I I think repression can really lead to some long-term damage.
Hmm. I I I couldn't agree more with you on this, Adrian. Couldn't agree more. And um, also there are a lot of misconceptions around mental health. Like um, in general, um, this kind of a very I don't know, a very wrong idea about someone suffering, not suffering exactly, but having these kind of concerns or issues or traumatic experiences. People kind of would expect that they would behave either violently or they would harm others. And it's a huge kind of stereotypical or a big misconception in there. And that's why, I don't know, it kind of gives a very negative connotation to it. I mean, what's your thought on this, Adrian?
So, I was first diagnosed with major depressive disorder when I was 15 years old, and I went back to the foster home where I was living, and I took my razor apart, and I started cutting my wrists. I thought that being labeled with major depressive disorder, that I was defective, that I was damaged, that I was not worthy. And what I've come to realize is depression is a chemical imbalance in the brain. When you endure multiple traumas, your brain literally stops making the chemicals that allow you to be happy.
Mm,
And I compared that to a person with diabetes and insulin. Their body doesn't make enough insulin, so they have to take medication to supplement what their body needs. And no one would ever look down or criticize a diabetic for needing insulin. It's a medical condition. Of course, they need medication to treat it. And that's exactly the same as major depressive disorder and mental illness in general.
mm,
There are physiological reasons for these illnesses, and medication is one tool in how to manage those.
mm. Yeah, yeah. And let's get to like before the degrees and advocacy and the book that is soon going to be released, Adrian. Uh, your time at the foster system, this young version of you. What was that moment you first realized survival was going to require more than just endurance? That it was going to demand choice, your agency, your sovereignty.
Mhm. I don't know that there was a moment in particular.
Mhm.
Um, I I went while I was in that foster home, I lived through hell. And
Mm,
in the book, I refer to the foster mother as the witch from hell, except for with a B. So TBFH, the witch from hell.
mm,
And it it was the worst time of my life.
Mm.
And my escape, my out, I actually received a congressional scholarship to do a 1-year foreign exchange to Germany. And,
Mhm.
this was my junior year of high school. And that is that was my salvation, and
Mhm.
it got me away from a horribly abusive environment. To give it some context, my schizophrenic, physically abusive mother, I've
Mhm.
never had a nightmare about her, but the foster mother that I was placed with, TBFH, I have had nightmares about her as recently as a year ago, and I wake up crying. And it wasn't physical or sexual abuse, it was emotional, mental abuse, psychological abuse.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. I think sometimes the implications, the wounds are, um, they're not visible. They're not just physical. They can be emotional. They can be so deeply ingrained, um, that people say that you need to move on, you need to forget everything and move on with your life. But and sometimes people would also say that, um, I wouldn't want to revisit those memories. But I think, this journey, this process of healing, uh, though it can be messy, though it can be a bit overwhelming, but I think it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. And I really, really, really appreciate, Adrian, that you are being very, very open, direct, and straightforward. Not just, making everything fluff here, because let's admit it. I mean, lot of things that we read around or hear around, specifically mental health, that be positive, do this, do that. I think that's not coming from uh, a sense of reality or rawness. It's just
Right.
coding everything.
I agree. So, I am an expert at compartmentalizing, all of my traumas, I put each one in a metaphorical box on a metaphorical shelf behind a metaphorical door, and they've stayed there for the last 20 years. And little bit of background, I was a ward at the state of Texas. My mother relinquished her parental rights, and and when I was 20 years old, I contacted Children's Protective Services and I said, "I'd like my case file." And they
Mhm.
sent me this gigantic box with these 2 huge stacks of papers. And it was everything that had ever been written or documented, uh, about me.
Mhm.
So everything from monthly reports from the foster mother to how I came into CPS, the
Mhm.
beating and the abuse that I went through with my mother, psychiatric evaluations, everything. In fact, at the end of my book, I include the psychiatric evaluation that was done on me when I was 13 years old. And it took me so I received this box of papers when I was 20 years old, and it
Mhm.
took me 2 decades before I was able to sit down and to start going through these documents, because I knew that it would force me to relive the traumas that I had endured, and that was 4, almost 5 years ago. And writing this book has forced me to to acknowledge the traumas, to relive them. It's actually been hell writing it, um, because of having to relive the traumas, but it's also been incredibly cathartic.
Mhm.
I have I have I have overcome the traumas. I've survived this process, and I've healed significantly as a result of this promise of this progress. So I if I had known 4 years ago what it was gonna take for me to write the book, I'm
Mhm.
not sure that I would do it again. That's how painful it's been for me.
Yeah.
But I am in a much better place, and I think that's a direct result of writing the book. So, kind of a yin and yang, good and bad,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yep. And I think this discernment between expression and re-injury. I think this is something every trauma survivor wrestles with, and I think you have really um, mapped that boundary for all of them. Um, and also, Adrian, now being a mother, while carrying the memory of so much loss, must have reshaped how you approach safety and love. Um, what's one moment with your daughter that forced you to face your past again, but also helped you heal it?
So, my daughter was born August 7th,
Oh,
and as soon as she was born, I started drinking again. I was terrified of being a parent. I actually have a psychological evaluation, the second one that was done on me, and in it, it says, "Adrienne is terrified of having children because she thinks that she might do to them what was done to her." So, my daughter was born August 7th, and I was petrified of having her, of the responsibility. So, as soon as she was born, I started drinking again, and on November 8th, I woke up in the bathroom. I had passed out on the bathroom floor mat, and I woke up, and that was the day that I decided I was going to give my daughter the childhood that I didn't have. And I made a conscious decision then and there that I was going to raise her, that I was capable of doing this.
mm,
And while I have not been a perfect parent by any means, that that was the moment that I accepted the responsibility and I became her mother,
mm.
and that's my experience.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I mean, although messy, but I think, as you very perfectly said, it's the yin and yang. It's the yin and yang, and um you overcame, and I think that needs a lot of strength in there. And of course, there's strength and vulnerability of sharing this also. Have you had these conversations with your daughter? And if yes, then um, what uh, kind of reactions you got from her? Because sometimes yes, that anxiety, that being feeling scared of being a parent after uh, you know facing loss and having a difficult uh, past. um, I mean, that would really kind of put anyone in doubt of whether I will be able to take this responsibility and give the love and the warmth of motherhood that my child deserves. So, like, what kind of reactions you got from her? What kind of conversation it was?
Sure. So I have not shared with her everything that has happened to me throughout my life. And she actually asked me, she said, "Mom, is it okay if I don't read your book?"
Oh.
And I said, "Absolutely. You do not have to read it." She doesn't want to know everything that I've been through. And really, I don't think it's her place.
Mm.
She doesn't need to know all of the traumas that I endured. She needs me to be her mother and her parent. Um, and I was very proud of her for asking that and for to not wanting to see me in that light. I thought that was very astute on her part, that
Mhm.
she knew that I've dealt with significant adversity and also made terrible mistakes myself, horrible judgment, and she she asked my blessing
Mhm.
to avoid hearing all of that, and as her mother, as her parent, she doesn't need that from me. She needs different things from me.
Mhm.
So, it's actually very u ve I believe a very unique situation.
Mm.
She, she chooses not to know that, and I embraced it. She wants me to be her mother, not a trauma survivor. That's not what she gets from me.
Exactly, exactly. And that's exactly where, my the next part of the conversation would be focusing on is advocacy versus identity, Adrian. I mean, I absolutely am really loving, um, the way you are sharing your work. It is powerful. But then, um, have you ever felt trapped by your own story? Like people would only see the trauma survivor and they would forget the artist, the mother, the woman in Houston who would just want to live a normal day.
Mm. It's been interesting. I can tell you that my husband is very ready for me to be done with the book because I go through podcasts or writing or what have you, and it brings me down. And he is very much ready to have his happy, chirpy, rah, rah, rah life back.
Okay.
Um, so it's it's a very, very interesting question, the advocacy versus identity. I have felt trapped in my past. I did in my early 20s. I It shaped every decision I made, and it's it's a tightrope that you walk.
Mhm.
Um, I consider it the same as being your your mental illnesses. You can be depressed, you can have anxiety, but to not wear and live that label, um, it's a unique challenge to have depression, but not live the label. You are not your labels. And that's something that helps me to separate it. I am a trauma survivor, but I am also so much more than that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I really I think this can be the high I mean this line can exactly summarize everything. I mean, we are not our labels. This really gives that wholeness, that holistic sense of being, that we are not just a sum of our uh, traumatic events in our life. I am a person, I'm a mother, I'm a father, or I am someone who has kind of broken the shackles of a difficult childhood. And actually, I have, you know, been an exception where I used education as defiance. Because I think statistically, if we can say, I think only 3% of foster youth they make it to college. Uh, so yes, we are not our labels. I think this is such a powerful line in there, and I think it's a truth bomb because sometimes people would expect all this flowery inspiration, not honesty. But I think what you have shared or you are describing, it is a real liberation in it itself. So, Adrian, before we wrap up, um, um, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and also they would like to get a hold of your upcoming book, um, and they would also like to share their feelings or anything, what would be the easiest way for them?
Sure. So my book is available for pre-order on pretty much every platform, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, etc. And for anyone who would like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to visit my website, which is unbrokencaldwell.com. And I've actually posted pictures and all of many of the documents from my CPS case file.
Mm.
So, psych evaluations, letters from my mother, documents regarding therapist reports, etc. And my social handle is also Unbroken Caldwell. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I would love uh, and encourage people either reach out through my website, which has a contact me form, or through social media. And I would love to hear from any listener who wants to connect.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listeners, what I'll do is I'll have all these details mentioned in the show notes. So just refer to them along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And if I can summarize this, what I'm taking from Adrian tonight in this episode is that healing isn't a highlight reel. It isn't fluff. It's not always beautiful. It is handwriting your life back into your own language. And if I can say anything about life outside the lines, I think it isn't just a memoir. It is a map for anyone who is still somewhere between the wreckage and the rewrite. So, if Adrian's story has stirred something within you, let that be a sign. You are not behind in your healing, my friend. You are just mid chapter. So, take a breath, honor your story, your journey, and please remember peace isn't found, it is practiced. And Adrian, I couldn't thank you enough because, I mean, I don't know. I don't have the perfect words to summarize, but I really, really appreciate the strength, the vulnerability, the rawness that you have brought to this conversation on inner peace, better health. Thank you.
It's been a privilege to be here to speak with your audience and you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. And listeners, until then, I am Sana, and this has been Inner Peace, Better Health, where we sit with what's real so we can walk towards what's next. Thank you.